the Lady of Amritsar, the Bhangra Daytimers, Malaga, Waterloo Place, Governor of the Punjab, Anita Briones Delgado, Tower Hamlet, Madrid, Guru Ka Bagh, Morchas, Savoy Hotel. He took Amrit, Charles Freer Andrews, Sikh History, Empire, Berlin, the Old Kent Road, Dublin, the Maharaja, Newcastle, Jinnah, 1920s, Cambridge, Sikhs in Malta, wife number 5, Australia, Manchester, the Sikh Kingdom, Hampton Court, Iceland, the Atletico Madrid Stadium, London, San Marino, World War I, Brighton. So I don't think there's any country that I can't find you Sikh history.
What's going on, everyone? It's Ramblings of a Sikh here with another podcast episode. A quick welcome to all the new viewers and a huge welcome back to all of those who are returning. Today I get the chance to talk to a London-based researcher who has created innovative walking tours within the UK, Europe and further afield, all relating to Sikh history. On top of that, we discuss so much more, so don't forget to watch this video until the end, and please make sure to like, comment and subscribe, as this really makes a difference to us. On top of that, you can find a timestamp breakdown of the full conversation in the description below. Now, with all of that out of the way, all I can say is let's get straight into this.
Thank you for having me today. Looking forward to this Q&A with yourself, because I think I've listened to at least half a dozen of your ones with other esteemed and distinguished guests. And I think, I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to having this chat.
Oh no, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and especially coming from someone who spent, it's now been over, 10 years, 14 years now that you've spent focusing
14
on
years probably.
If not more?
Well, in the social media space, I suppose. But I think when we go through our story, I think, it's as far as I can remember, really.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we'll definitely hold on to that then. So, as always, I'd love to start to get to know a little bit more about yourself. I guess in essence, what we're trying to find out is, who is Rav Singh? Okay,
so who is Rav Singh? I think, you probably won't even find that I'm on any official name, because that's a nickname, right? My full name's Ranveer Singh. Grew up with various spellings of Ranveer on my NHS passport. Everything was different. I think my dad went somewhere and the lady just spelt it a French way, went to school and spelt it an English way, went to Punjabi school and spelt it a Punjabi way. So I grew up with all these different documents with different variations: Ranveer, Ranveer, with an IR, EER, IER. So when I got my consciousness about my own name, I just became Rav, and it was just Rav Singh. So that was probably around post GCSEs. So I'm a London-born Sikh, raised in the east side of London, studied in London university-wise. And then since I started work, I actually started work on the 6th of January, 2000. So right at the dawn of the millennium, after the bank holidays, and been working non-stop for a long time. And that's taken me into the public sector, the private sector, the public-private sector, first in London, then the regions, and then across the UK and around the Dominions, around the islands. And since 2013, I have my own small project management practice. I work aligned to a company called One Consulting Group, which I helped set up. And I work on a range of projects in the public and private sector. A lot of that means you have project management time, downtime in the week, evenings in hotels. And really the little history journey has kind of grown with my own working career. And now the way I've done it, because I have my own practice, I'm master of my own Microsoft Outlook diary. And what that means is I can block out time and do things during the daytime when it's Sikh history, then catch up with work in the evening if I want to, or indeed don't do full-time work anymore. In the summer, little history takes over, and in the winter, real work takes over.
That is amazing. That sounds like a perfect balance. So how long have you been balancing the two, or has that kind of been something that you've always done?
Yeah, so I think, when you look at how I grew up in Newham, East London, and I think it's kind of what I call the land of the 7 gurdwaras or something. It's just, gurdwaras are everywhere in Newham. You have 2 on one road, Ramgarhi and Neville Road. Rosebery Avenue is walking distance away. The Namtari Sangat is near Ramgarhi and Neville Road. Ravi Dasia's is not far away. Baba Namdev Community Centre was literally opposite our house. And then Barking, and then Seven Kings and Ilford, all these came later, but really they were all within Newham. So I think, we probably didn't step out of Newham, because everyone just, until I was probably 15, 16, everything's at the Gurdwara, every family functions at the Gurdwara, every wedding's at the Gurdwara. It's going to be one of those. So it was very much an M25 life. You don't really leave the M25. Our Punjabi school was there in the 80s. Then I started playing sports for the Ramgarhia Sports Centre in the 90s. And the flick switch was when I went to university. So I find that most Sikh kids do it the other way around. They grew up in a very non-Sikh environment and discover Sikhi at university. I was like a grounded Sikh proper. I could read Punjabi, do the parts, play the tabla, do all of that, play table tennis for the Gurdwara, do all of that until 16, 17, 18. And then when I went to university, I only had a very small role in the Sikh society because I just wanted to discover everything else. We only had 5 or 6 Sikhs at that time at Imperial College I studied. Very small Sikh society. We kind of helped each other get through, but a lot of it wasn't, we didn't have a big society. So it was really Kings was down the road. So you did things with Kings if you wanted to collaborate. And really, we were just happy to just sit together and eat most days. And that was our Sikh society, in the canteen, catch up over lunch and then go back to your lectures and practicals and whatever. Physicists. We didn't have a medical school on site. So there was very few Asians. It was all engineers, foreign students, making the most of the South Kensington campus. So I remember that. And I remember when they said Sikh society elections, I think my grandmother always told me, do whatever seva you want, but don't become a committee member. And I've kind of lived with that kind of blessing all my life.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. What was it that spurned you to do your own research? Because I think a lot of people are quite happy to just learn it off family members and kind of take that for gospel. But what was it that made you question that and go, hold on, I'm going to go look for it myself?
That's quite interesting because in the 90s, this kind of, so being in the Gurdwara, speaking Punjabi, Japji Sahib, Rehra Sahib, Vaisakhi programs, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpur programs, no problem. We knew we had to recite a poem, we knew we had to do this Kirtan. Punjabi school teachers are like your extended family. So they, if your Masi says you have to do something, you have to do something, right? And my parents respected our Punjabi school teachers and, you can't upset them, right? So that's fine. That's how I learned to wear my dastar for Punjabi school programs, etc. But we had something in East London where there were a couple of collectors. There's one by the name of Dawar Singh Bara, who you may have come across. His father did an exhibition in 1999 at the Ramgarhia Gurdwara. And what he did was present a lot of stuff like you have on your wall, a lot of newspapers, a lot of framed items, beautifully framed. And it just was actually Sikhi might be a little bit more than just the routine that we were used to, okay? Seed planted, very nice. He actually had a gun with him that day that was belonged to the bodyguard of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and he could trace it all the way back. So for some kids, it was that.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just, these are newspapers, and I read newspapers. It's got the Golden Temple in it, and wow, it's Harmandir Sahib. I was also then at university, so Notting Hill Market wasn't far away. And we had an experience with the Victorian Albert Museum. And all of these things around the dawn of the millennium kind of showcased that actually Sikhi was not just within the Gurdwara environment, that there was Sikhi outside of the Gurdwara that was accessible. Let's just say it was accessible. Now, the V&A Museum reached out to our Sikh Society and they said, could you help support us, run it? What they really meant was, could you just sit at the entrance and guide people to where it is in Punjabi, So I was usually sitting on Wednesday afternoon, while probably Davinder Dul was inside learning all the great stuff from Susan Strong. I was sitting outside with my chemistry book underneath the thing. And as soon as a coach from Derby or Birmingham thing, all the BBR got off, because it was mainly generally elders who were coming, in the week, not during the weekends. And in the week they would come and I would just say, Hanji Benji, toilets that way, Hanji Badi, toilets that way, because they all want to go to the toilet first and then they want to go to the exhibition. I remember doing that. And to be honest, with our group, they all did that. We all did that on different days. There was just a bug at the entrance, Sikh exhibition that way, And whilst we're sitting there bored, we could just revise our notes for practicals. But when I did go into the exhibition, it kind of helped you understand about the empire, about the throne was being more prominently displayed, other aspects of artifacts. And then later in that summer, I was in Trafalgar Square. In Trafalgar Square, there's a Havelock statue. On the back of the Havelock statue, it says the Ferozepore Regiment of Sikhs. And at the front of the statue, it says, "Soldiers, your labours, your privations, your sufferings will not be forgotten by a grateful country." I was like, hold on, we're in Trafalgar Square. It says 1857, so we know it's the mutiny. It says, "Soldiers, your labours, your privations, your sufferings, and your valour will not be forgotten by a grateful country." Then you walk around the back and you got a citation, the Ferozepore Regiment of Sikhs. So then I went to see Avtar Bara because he started doing my framing, and I said to him, "Avtar, I've seen this statue, and on the back it says the Ferozepore Regiment of Sikhs. What's this all about?" And then he explained the mutiny and explained the story. And then I researched it a little bit more. Then I found out that it was James Altham, who wrote that in his diary. So then from his diary, it was the war cry that Havelock gave to his Sikh soldiers when they were in Lucknow battling against the mutiny. And when they were doing that, they saved the lives of 400 women and children. And Havelock said, "Soldiers, your labours, your privations, your sufferings, and your valour will not be forgotten by a grateful country." And it's memorialised in Trafalgar Square. And about 10 years later, we're having all this Vaisakhi and the square stuff, going on. Maybe at that time, it was very, let's just say, Punjabi culture orientated event, and what they would do is they would board up this statue because people would damage it, they would think, because there's going to be 10,000 people in the square. They would board it up, and then all you would find is people putting their langar plates on it, and I was just like, people need to know this story somehow, I just don't know how to do this. It was about 10 years after that EY, there was a gentleman there, Lovepreet Singh, gave me the opportunity to actually present at Trafalgar Square and tell this history. And what I did is produce a self-guide map. You'll find it on our website. And we produced a map because there's about 10 other items just around Trafalgar Square of Sikh history. So while you're here, you're in Trafalgar Square, you've come on all these coaches, all these Sikh histories around you, but all you're interested in is samosa pakode, filling up your bag and then going back home, day out in London, with the sunglasses on, take a few photos. And it was turning into that kind of event. And I haven't done that one again. Now it's a totally different event. It's much more, thought about, and it's the message of Vaisakhi. So it was different. But in those days, they just used to we'll get Malkeet Singh down, do a few songs, and then, people can dance. And that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. So just picking your brain then on kind of the 90s for yourself, I think, considering you've listened to some of the previous podcasts, I'm sure you've picked up on how the exhibition in 1999 and the Susan Strong one is very, very instrumental in the work that a lot of people in this area now do, including yourself, including Devinder Toor, including Amandeep Madra. And they're just the three people that I've had the chance to talk to who have all expressed very similar.
But for me, see, they were more confident. They said, "We want to do this, and we want to go all out and do it." Right? I met Aman in Norfolk at the unveiling of the statue. Bought his book when he had a little tent and a table. Devinder, I don't really know at all. But what they've managed to do with whatever inspiration they had was like phenomenal, and we've just kind of caught on their coattails at the back, trying to think, well, surely. And my story is a little bit different because I focused on a totally different demographic, I think, right, which we'll get into. But for me, the seed was sown that there is a lot of Sikh history around us. The 1999 exhibition, I think I took for granted. I just thought Sikhi is the 6th largest religion in the world. This kind of stuff must happen all the time. The fact that it hasn't happened for the next 23 years to that scale. And I know Amandeep and Devinder have done great exhibitions at SOAS, every 2 years, they were wonderful. But the V&A, I work with the V&A now, the clout they can put behind an exhibition, the numbers are phenomenal. You had 500,000 visitors, at the V&A one. I'm working with palaces, I'm working with other people now, and the numbers that a mainstream organization can get are just phenomenal. And the amount of prachar you can do, if you can just get the right words, the right thing, it can open up their own learning. And that's the market I'm trying to tap into now. But what we did for 10 years, we just worked on our own solid ground, and I'll explain the kind of difficulties I had then. But now we can step out of the Sikh space, I think, with that grounding,
Two questions that I hope you don't mind me asking, and they're slightly more contentious topics, especially at the moment. So one is how, so one is, and I've had this debate with a few other people, or asked them, anyway, I think I asked Amandeep Madhav in particular because he has an OBE as well, which
Yeah.
is, so for someone who studies Sikh history, there's always, especially nowadays anyway, often there's this debate that is kind of like you can't be in the British Army or a national army and then claim Sikhi, so to speak, yeah, quote unquote. These aren't necessarily my words, but the
Yeah,
argument that's
okay.
put forward.
All right, let's get into this.
Yeah. Now, for me, I personally, I don't think you can necessarily, I can't, and no one else can kind of say whether someone else is or isn't. And I personally think it's a completely down to the individual. And also historically looking at stuff like the British Indian Army during the British Raj, I think it's extremely difficult for anyone in that kind of social economic makeup to somehow all of a sudden be like, no, I'm not going to become a soldier because of whatever. And like, as in everything, as Amandeep Madra said, everything is telling that person to join the army, financially, economically, socially, everything that goes with that.
How do we do this? Because I can do it through two lenses. I can do it through my lens as well. Me as an individual, when you said, who are you? I said, I'm a London-born Sikh, right? I choose those words very carefully, right? Because that's what I am. This bug does not mean I'm a Kenyan immigrant, right? It's inherited from our family teachings, us how to tie the star, and I'm definitely not Indian born. When I go to India, I feel like a stranger. I'm treated like a stranger. I'm treated like an economic opportunity by anyone. You know, everything's, whatever it is, I don't know if it's the way we just spend money more easily because it's the conversion factor, but other than the gurdwaras, I don't feel at home in India, you know, other than the visits to the gurdwaras, which have historical importance for me. But everything else I look around India, you come back with sadness, you know, that this opportunity, the way Punjab investment doesn't work, job opportunities always in Canada rather than in Punjab. So I've never felt at home, and it might be the accent, it might be the style of the dastar, but whenever you go shopping, it's stress. If you go to the bank, it's stress. Everything you do in India, it doesn't support you just making your life easier. you know, it's hard work, you know, just doing things. So I've never felt at home in India. And then when you come to England, no one thinks you're British because of the bug you wear, the way you think. So if I tell people born in London, studied in London, can speak any Cockney accent you want me to speak and I can understand it, you know, they don't believe you at first, right? Because they just assume second, third generation, you shouldn't, you know, your name should be John Singh by now or Steve Singh by now, right? So I've never fitted in there and I don't fit in here. So I've grown up in an area where Sikhs are not the majority. We probably only had one or two Sikhs in our class and we were good friends, maybe 2 or 3 Sikh girls, 2 or 3 Sikh boys, that's it. And then the Gurdwara was your safety net to be brought up within your own community. I'm now living in an area that I never thought I would have lived in before. It borders on an area which did select a lot of BNP councillors when I was in this area. And yet more Indians are moving in, more Asians are moving in, right? So that's one thing. So when we look at how do I feel about the British system, you know, at the end of the day, my passport is British, right? You know, and I align with the fact that, and I went through this in my own journey, everything I was discovering was that activism, that history thing, and you go through these emotions, you know, but when I take groups to these places, I'm viewing them, at least discussing those emotions and their views, and at least we can do it in a friendly environment without accusing people of anything. I go to these museums and I describe what they've got as belonging to a great empire, and it was taken from a child, you know, and put on this list and brought over and given away as a trophy. And they're listening to me now and they're saying, oh, we understand now what we have in our collection. How can we tell this story? You know, it's not going to be a quoit captured on the battleground. It's going to be a chakra that's been taken from a Nihang Singh in this style. And when you bring that to life, they're interested. The people I meet are interested. They're not here saying, you know, so I don't know politically why the message always gets mixed up, you know. Yes, these items are here. Yes, the museum that has it has provenance of how they got it, right? They have that. But ultimately, we know another version of how, deals were done at that time and the kingdom was annexed. And that story at least needs to be discussed and told. And all the books behind me and all the books behind you, all people have to do is just pick them up and read them and let them make their own mind up, Why do we want to be in this thing where we can't, any individual, we're on a Sikhi learning journey. I'm on a Sikhi learning journey. You're on a Sikhi. So the same thing on our history. Read it yourself and come up with your own sources and read the whole spectrum. Don't just read one side of it, because the people I know in the Defence Sikh network, they know this history as well. They know about the Anglo-Sikh Wars. They know about the annexation. But equally, they're getting an opportunity to do jobs that no other job would give you in the UK. They're going and they're doing mission control and logistics and everything while I'm going into an office and sitting in front of Excel all day, right? It's just like, it's giving you an opportunity to build your skills, and I think they are interested in what they have, why they've got it, how they got it. And if we can inform that learning and translate it, it must give us a platform to put Guru Nanak's way forward.
No, definitely. I guess in a nutshell, what you're saying is that you're aware of the nuance to the history, so ensure that you share kind of a more realistic version of events, which is
both sides of the story.
Yes,
you want
which is brilliant.
I think definitely. So. But there's an art of communicating that without getting defensive. We're quite hot-blooded. I have these discussions in a gurdwara and I have these discussions in a museum. And in a gurdwara, sometimes I'm just like, well, I can't change what you're gonna say because you've learned it in this way. You've opened your eyes, and I'm not challenging that. I'm just saying there is another part of the story. If we could get 2, 3, 5 things to just speak in a circle, listen to each other, and come up with a consensus or a debate is fine.
Yeah, you don't have to agree, right? As in, we can agree.
I don't agree with most of the stuff my own family tell me, right? I don't go around beating them up or anything.
Completely.
My own family tell me so much ingrained stuff that I know is propaganda.
But
because it's on a TV channel or the newspaper they read, they believe it.